All right. So, sometime a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, actually, I met this woman, and we're close now. Like, I like her. She's a friend. A whole lot of stuff. So, when I met her, I was basically I realized the nature of her vibe was she has been doing everything correct and how she structured her life around her. She has been doing everything correct and basically, but not able to kind of take that leap, that next leap to kind of like build on top of what she's been structuring. And she kept saying it was a comfort zone. I don't really think it's a comfort zone because nothing about it was comfortable. But that's like my own theory about comfort zones. I don't know if I talked about this before, but maybe one day or soon in the future, I'd actually like have something more decent to discuss than just that comfort zone. But I remember like my conversations with her were very like eye-opening for me and kind of like very I kind of like got a lot more and I still talk to her, right? And they still kind of like open things in my head, inspiring me to like do stuff. Like she is one wonderful woman and everything about her is just like intensely amazing. But so as I was and I used to like hang out with her any chance I could because like anytime I'd take a break, she'd be there and we'd have a conversation and all that good stuff. And I had to move to a different place. I had to leave my place of work, and we still talk. We hung out this weekend. I'm helping her with her website. I'm super excited to actually like develop her website as well and like do all kinds of stuff. So that stuff for me is actually like fairly. This is the training that I want, the activities that I would want to actually engage with. But overall, what happens is the the person I met yesterday, and also like I told you about it about her. She like runs a shop and she's a businesswoman. And while I was talking to her, something clicked to me that made me want to send myself a voice note. And the voice note was like the difference between a genius and a mystic. I chose genius versus mystic, right? And I think because genius is very much the scientific term for basically somebody who has gotten creative but in his own field. Like all like Richard Feynman describes his work as art. Einstein describes his work as art. They describe each other's work as art. Like all these people that kind of like are considered geniuses were artists in their field. And then all artists in their field, the actual artists, were also like considered that basically that understanding of what they were trying to do when people start getting it, that becomes a consideration of like genius. But then on the other side, the creative approach to life, and I use the term mysticism specifically because like the mystics are the people that speak wisdom, the sages, the people, the, the I want to say the monks, man, but like the people like Buddha, people like Ram Dass, and the philosophers. These guys kind of like they are geniuses in how they see life, how they processed life, how they approached life, how they moved through life to get to where they are. There's definitely a mark of a genius, but the big difference between geniuses when it comes to like their fields and geniuses when it comes to life, I really think it's emotions. And geniuses, when it comes to their fields, they just kind of like systematically got closer and closer and closer until they tapped into the emotional vein, which is expression and to be able to kind of like express truthfully what they've learned and what they're learning and understanding and all that stuff. Whilst people that are like more, I don't know, I want to say like they became geniuses through the whole course of understanding life. And in a way where like Miyamoto Musashi, for example, is very much a genius when it came to the sword, but like his true genius was in how he basically applied his mastery over the sword to the entirety of everything he does. And it came to a point where everything he touches just becomes an extension of his hand, of his body. And even when he writes as an extension of his mind, right? Like in all of these, it's just like he talks about it, even he talks about the way. Once you find the way, you find it in anything. And these are all mystical approaches, man. Like, and even Einstein, the way he speaks about how he imagines his physics and how he imagines his formulas and how he imagines his theories. Like all of those are just kind of like a mystical approach, but they're geniuses. And then there's a genius approach to mysticism because you destructure things. And so the woman that I met yesterday, and that I was hanging out with yesterday, and we are having a conversation, and we talked for like 4 or 5 hours, man. Like it was like beautifully intense. But like we kept the fun thing about it is after like 3 hours, there's nothing more to kind of like layer. You literally are just like there's nothing more for you to use. You literally have to kind of like open up to the things that you normally would hide, right? So the way she spoke about how she sees like this her spirits actually like moving through the earth and how she would want to kind of like express herself, and she knows her own message, the one she wants to send, and the creative like channel that she has. The way she expressed it was such an emotional thing for me, and I'm talking about it right now, and I'm kind of like feeling it because for me it takes a lot of reasoning until I realize the emotion behind why I'm moving and doing something. And for her, she seemed to come from the different approach where she has all the emotion and she's trying to understand the reasoning. And it felt like by hour number 3.5, I think, we kind of started each understanding, or at least from my side, like I realized that my elaborations are very much a logical approach and a reasonable approach to how I see my emotions. And for her, it was an emotional approach to how she sees reasoning. Like she feels something to the core. That's why she does it. No, for me, I look at something and I know it at the core. That's why I actually start like feeling it. And again, like 3 months ago, I met my friend, and me and her, our difference was I literally just jumped into life to explore and realize what I need to structure, while she herself kind of like understood that she had to structure before she jumped. I hesitated for so long before structuring, and she has been hesitating for so long in order for her to kind of like she finished her structure. She just wants to jump into life and whatever it is. And it feels like after 4 months of like kind of having that experience and building this friendship, now I'm actually meeting somebody that kind of on a, I don't want to say on a different level, but in a different state than mine, because like each is different state. There is no level. There's you leveling up, but there's all these things about you that kind of like have to complement each other in order for you to kind of like build yourself up and kind of like engage with life as a game. And so from a completely different like outlook, she came with all the feelings and how she approaches things, whilst I am coming with all the logic and how I approach things. And then the feeling is kind of like talking to her. And right now, I'm having this conversation right now with this camera, and my feelings are kind of like flowing in a weird way. It's just a bit. There's a certain sense of happiness. There's a sense of certain sense of like truth, like an embedded reality. Like this is really something that I have been doing for so long. And maybe this is the true presence behind like actually being involved in it. Maybe that's the true interaction that you would have with the things that you're actually engaging with. And I've been getting that every once in a while, but I really have to like empty my head. I really have to like let things out to a point where I kind of like get to a core of an emotion. And I feel like for some fucking reason, like it hasn't been the case with me being able to express emotions for the longest time. Uh, I wrote about it a lot, by the way. Like I had a friend that died when I was like 17 years old, and everyone brushed it because they wanted to celebrate like New Year's. Uh, it's still not big of a deal, death, and we all are going to die. I completely understand that. But there's some unfairness to you just kind of like not having a say in anything, I think. And that's where your emotions are kind of like, what do you do? Right? Like I strictly remember like 4 days not speaking to anyone, just completely like in shock after like her death. And so maybe that's the case. Maybe that's when I was like I stopped being able to express myself. Maybe it was even before that, and I just added life added more things for me to kind of like deal with. And maybe it was like 3 years ago when I started opening up and I realized like the world is not really as fair as I would want it to be, and the truth behind how I felt about that fairness. Not that I didn't see it as fair, it's just how I felt about that fairness kind of like made me realize how unpresent I actually am. I don't know, but like it really does. This surrealness has become so normal where if you're really actually a person that's like, energies collide and vibe, like, how close to those words are you? Because the reality is you literally only are attracted to the places and the people that resonate with you. And then as you process just interacting with these places, because you don't really know why you're actually doing those, your free will is existing simply within your presence. And if you're not in touch with that, you're going to be doing a whole lot of things not really knowing why. And I think realizing that, like, I have transitioned, I've changed 4 houses this year, man. This is my fourth house. I was at my parents and then moved to like a place and then another place and now here. All in a period of like fucking 6 months. Like in 6 months, I've moved literally 3 places. And one, two, and this is the third. So something's been pulling me, all these decision making that's happening, they happen and then they're gone. And time is flowing and I'm moving and in a direction. And every single thing is kind of pushing and leading. And every time something pops up and I decide to do something and I hesitate and then eventually I do it and then it builds into something that becomes normal and it's just surreal is normal. And to see it, to be able to feel it, to be able to be present with it, I think is just is something that we have to engage with, experiment with, and like really, truly try to accept as a part of reality. Or at the very least, I am like learning to accept it because I don't really like this is not this is not how I used to deal with things. It's the best way I can explain it. And now I'm having these conversations in my head out loud, taking notes. It's just fucking amazing. Truly. Thank you guys.